Alright, as you can see, I've got the radio unit itself disconnected from the faceplate and mounting bracket. And at this point we can go ahead and set that portion off to the side. We won't need that again until we have made the repair and are ready to put everything back together. So our next step is going to be to remove some of the screws that hold the case of the radio closed. There's a fair amount that we need to take out. There's actually two different types of screws. Some of them have just a regular pan head, and then others have sort of a combination pan and washer head like those. So it's fairly important that you put those back in the same holes. I don't know that the thread patterns are the same, so whatever you do, just sort of come up with a way to remember where they go. Either take photos, or I think what I might do is take a Sharpie and put a little dot by the screws with the washer heads. That way I know where they go back. Anyhow, you can figure out your own methodology for that. But the screws we need to remove are this screw here, then turn it, and then we need to remove all the screws on this side. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, just keep track of which screws go where. There's two different types. On the front, we need to remove one screw here and one screw here. Again, those two look like they're different sizes, so keep track of those as well. And then we want to lay it flat. This is the bottom side of the unit, and we need to remove some screws in the corners. One screw there, one screw there, and one screw there, and those are the type with the washer head. So I'm going to remove all of those, and then I will show you how to carefully open the case up and remove the board inside, and that's where we can make the repair. So let me get some screws removed here, and I'll show you how to open the bottom of the case. Okay, I've got the screws removed. I ended up just getting some soda bottle caps and labeled them front, back, left, and bottom to keep track of my screws. That way I know which side they go back on. So now that you've got all the screws removed, the heat sink here should just remove, and you can lay that aside. And then there's two spots. You can see right there, it's upside down, but it says open. And over on the other side, same thing, it says open. What you want to do is take a flat blade screwdriver. I ended up starting with a little tiny one like this, and you want to stick it in this slot here. I've already got the bottom panel popped up a little bit here, but you want to just get under that edge and lift up. When it's closed up, bottom edge will be overlapping this slot right here. You can just get under there with your screwdriver, lift up. It took a little bit of effort, but once you get it lifted up, then I worked my way over to this side and was able to lift here and just lift this entire thing loose. Okay, so now we need to be extremely careful. We're going to be exposing the inside components, so proceed with extreme caution here. Let me get this opened up and laid open so you can see the inside. I need two hands to do that, so let me get the bottom cover lifted off, and I'll show you the inside and show you where we're going to make the repair. Alright, I've got everything loosened up now. So you're going to want to take this bottom panel and just gently lift it up, and you can set that aside. That exposes this board here. Now on the underside of this, which is actually the top side, the unit's upside down right now, but on the back side of this board there is going to be a ribbon cable that's connecting it to the other board inside, and you just have to be extremely careful. As I lift up, you'll see the ribbon cable exposed right there. So when I initially popped this up, I didn't have to pulling it hard, but it was held in place by a couple of little plastic tabs. I don't know if the camera will focus, but there's a couple of tabs on this side that just sort of interlock with the board. It took just very minimal effort, but you don't want to go yanking on this thing and somehow rip this ribbon cable out of its connector and damage it. So just be very careful. We're going to want to lift this out, and the next step is going to be to disconnect the cable where it attaches to the board right there. Obviously I won't be able to do that with just one hand. It's going to be a delicate process. If you damage the ribbon cable, then your radio is probably shot. I imagine you could buy a replacement cable, but I don't know how much that would cost. So just be extremely careful here. Hopefully I can do this without damaging anything. So let me get this disconnected, and then I can finally get down to actually repairing the part that went bad. So let me get to that next. Alright folks, so I got to looking at that ribbon cable and I got really nervous about breaking it. So what I decided was I'm just going to leave it attached. So I flipped the case of the radio over upside down and was able to sort of prop it up. I've got a screwdriver case up underneath it so that the case itself back here is not resting on the table, and the cable can pass freely underneath it. And I've just got the board laid out beside it, so the cable's still attached. I started trying to disconnect it and it was on there pretty good, and I was just afraid that something was going to give way and I would yank on the cable and it would break. So I'm going to try to do it this way. I don't see why it won't work. So anyway, you can remove the cable if you want to. I just got too nervous and decided to try something different. So now the area that we're going to be working in is right here. This is probably going to be out of focus, but let's see if I can point to it with the screwdriver. The part causing the problem is right there. It looks like three, I guess they're resistors. I read multiple opinions online about whether these are resistors or fuses or something different. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer. Don't really know. I do know that the middle one is causing the problem. That one right there. So there's several ways you can repair this. You can remove this and replace it with a new one. That's probably not what I'm going to do because I don't even know what it is. Don't exactly know how to get it out, and I'm not sure where I would get the replacement part. I'm sure they're out there. I just don't know what to ask for. So I have also seen and read that many people have simply bypassed this. You can either remove it and either solder in a bypass wire or simply just run a bead of solder across, or I've also read that you can actually just leave this component in place and solder across the top of it. That was my game plan going in. To be honest with you, now that I see how tight this space is to work in, I'm not the best solderer ever, so I think I'm probably not going to try to use hot solder. I had read somewhere that someone had success completing this repair with something called a circuit writer pin, which I wasn't all that familiar with, but I went out to my local Radio Shack. Sure enough, they carry that very product. It's basically a pin that puts down instead of regular ink, puts down a line of ink that has conductive materials in it. I believe it's some sort of silver solution. Here's the pin itself. It's got a very fine tip and it's got sort of a soft barrel, and you squeeze the barrel as you write and it puts out a little line of conductive ink. And I did a test here on this envelope. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. It's sort of out of focus, but that little gray silver colored line there came out of this pin. So my plan is to try to draw a bypass wire, for lack of a better term, across the top of that component and hopefully it will make contact with the terminals on either side and just allow current to pass through, and that should solve the problem. So I'm going to give this a try with this pin, and I'll show you the results, good or bad, when I'm done. Alright everybody, I have coated the bad component a couple times with the circuit writer pin. Hopefully you can see that in the center of the screen. Try to point to it right there. Coated it once and let it sit overnight, and then I wasn't totally convinced that I had covered it to where it was making contact on either side. So what I did was I took a toothpick and coated the end really good. And the main part I was concerned about was on the left side, right there, just because I couldn't get the tip of the circuit writer pin down in there. So like I said, I coated this toothpick, and then I went in on the side over here and was able to sort of paint the edge of the part with the conductive ink from that side. So I feel like I've gotten it as good as I can at this point. It sort of has a matte gray finish. So I'm going to start to put the radio back together and then temporarily plug it into the wiring harnesses coming out of the dash, and I'm going to start the car up and see if it works. I really don't want to put the dash back together if my repair doesn't work. I may as well get a new radio or figure something else out. So anyhow, I'm going to reassemble this and take it out to the car and try it out, and I'll show you if it works or not. Alright folks, I've got the radio hooked up. I didn't screw it back into place just because I'd like to test it out first. But the wiring harnesses are reconnected, and I'm about to turn on the key to the accessories on position, and we'll see what happens. That's a good sign. It looks like it's working. The radio display is lit up, and actually I'm going to start the car and turn the headlights on. And it looks like all of the HVAC controls light up as well. So looks like the problem is now fixed. So that's great news. I will stop now, and then probably tomorrow when it's a little bit lighter outside, I'll reinstall everything and show that step-by-step process, and this little project will be wrapped up. Alright, so the first step in reassembly is to go ahead and, once you get the radio unit slid back into place where it sits, go ahead and reinstall the 3 Phillips head screws across the top. There, there, and there. And then sort of give the front of the unit a push, and you should feel the 3 clips on the bottom re-engage. Once you've done that, then you take the 2 hex head screws with the washers and reinstall them on the bottom of the radio. Hopefully you can see there's one there and one there. Once you get those secured, then you're ready to start putting the other trim components back in. So I will show that step next. Okay, once you've got the radio unit screwed and secured back into place, the next step that I'm going to do is to reinstall this top section of the dash. And once again, it's got 6 clips in it, and it sort of slides in this way from the front. So you'll set it back into place like I've done, like that, and you'll sort of feel it start to catch in the clips. And then you just want to give it a gentle push from the front, like that. I'll need 2 hands to do it, but just give it a push sort of forward and down, and it should re-engage in the clips. Once you've got that secured, then it's time to move on to the trim at the center console. So let me get this dash piece reinstalled, and then we'll move on.